In a hypothetical scenario where, let's say, there is maybe a fully fledged type of altcoin season during this cycle, there is going to be three hypothetical price scenarios that I have on my mind when it comes to Zilliqa's native token called ZIL. And even though nothing I say is financial advice, what is the first price scenario I want to talk about when it comes to ZIL? And that is maybe arguably the idea of 20 cents, which is around a 16.5x from here, and market cap at that point, if we were to consider the current circulating supply, would be nearly 4 billion. The reason why this wouldn't necessarily surprise me is because I like the fundamentals when it comes to Zilliqa, and let me explain why. When it comes to Zilliqa, it's allegedly the world's first ever sharding-based blockchain, which I think is pretty cool because if we take a look at through sharding, the network is split into multiple sections known as shards, and workload on the network is distributed amongst these different shards, and as a result, allegedly it becomes very scalable. Now, granted, Zilliqa, again, despite allegedly being the world's first ever sharding-based blockchain, supposedly, it's not the only one to use sharding technology right now. I mean, we take a look at some other examples, like for instance, Near, right? Like the Near protocol. So there are some others there, and also I could mention a couple more, but then again, it's just kind of like the most popular example, I would say, arguably, which is Near right now. But besides all that, I just find it pretty cool and pretty interesting nonetheless. Now, even besides that, though, the way I take a look at it is that when it comes to Zilliqa, one of the key things that I think they did that makes me pretty excited for its future is Zilliqa 2.0. Now, the way I take a look at it is that it's kind of, if I were to put an analogy, somewhat of an upgrade. It's like, for instance, going from the iPhone 16 Pro Max to the 17 Pro Max, right? Because we take a look at the iPhone 17, I saw some releases when it comes to that. I thought it looks pretty cool, but again, it's just kind of like that. I didn't see anything wrong with Zilliqa to begin with. Like, for instance, right? The 16 Pro Max, I think is already very good. But the 17 Pro Max, I think it's cool. It's kind of like this. However, when it comes to Zilliqa 2.0, I think the cherry on top is that it is EVM compatible. And EVM, by the way, stands for Ethereum Virtual Machine, which I think is pretty awesome because Ethereum is just very popular. I mean, if we just take a look at Ethereum as a layer 1 blockchain, the adoption, we already know that it's hypothetically, pretty popular again. A lot of people know about Ethereum. So I like this step, kind of, when it comes to Zilliqa. I think that it seems to be heading in the right direction, and fundamentally, I'm just a big fan of what it's doing. Now, I'm not telling anyone to do anything when it comes to Zilliqa, but this is just my outlook when it comes to the project. So let's say maybe there is a fully fledged type of altcoin season during this cycle. When it comes to ZIL and maybe the idea of 20 cents, it wouldn't necessarily surprise me. Now, the idea of 23 cents, which is the second hypothetical price scenario I do want to talk about, at that point, it is around 19x, and market cap, if we were to consider the current circulating supply, would be nearly 4.5 billion. Now, why wouldn't this necessarily surprise me? I mean, BNB reached over $100 billion in market cap back in 2021, and that was years ago. Like, I get it, Zilliqa is probably never ever going to be bigger than that, but then this seems like a little bit not such an outlandish market cap to me, but again, this is just my thought process. However, now the third and final hypothetical price scenario that I want to talk about when it comes to ZIL is maybe the idea of 25 cents. That's around a 20x from here, and market cap at that point, if we were to consider again the current circulating supply, nearly 5 billion. When I take a look at the factors right now, like the Ethereum ETF, the Bitcoin ETF, and also I take a look at how supposedly there's more crypto owners right now than ever before in history at over 600 million. If this altcoin season looked better than back in 2021, it wouldn't necessarily surprise me. And if we do see one with all those factors, the idea of 25 cents when it comes to ZIL, it's still something that I'm thinking about. Now, when it comes to the timeline, all I can do really is just stay patient because whenever the altcoin space really decides to wake up, or should I say even just ZIL more specifically, it's going to be beyond my control. But whether or not it happens next month, in November, in December, or maybe even sometime in 2026, like in January or March or February, or something like that, right? The only thing I can do is just control myself. So I'm just going to stay patient, hold, and I just wait. Literally, that's it. I'm just dollar cost averaging. I cannot demand the market to do this or do that. All I can do is just stay patient. The only thing I can control is myself. And I'm just waiting. Like, I knew I was going to have to wait for quite a while because of, just the way I did things by dollar cost averaging, holding, and just waiting. I knew that. So I am not like, impatient or something like that. But again, this is just what I'm doing when it comes to Zilliqa. I'm just staying patient and just holding. That's pretty much it. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.